Democrats, according to Politico, intend to stake their House majority on preservation of abortion rights. Preservation of abortion rights. You got that? That's going to be the Democrats' message for the House. Nate Cohen at the New York Times is saying, well, it's possible they could keep the House. Never say never. Although the odds are they don't. The Republicans have rebounded. Now they're ahead in the generic ballot. They tend to do several points ahead. What's going on here and why the hesitation for so many people is no one really knows how the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade is going to affect things. And Democrats are hanging their hat on the fact that it is really deeply going to affect the direction of the race. I don't really think it is. In fact, I think it was Ramesh Ponnuru was on television this weekend saying it's ultimately going to be an economic decision. The politics haven't changed. There are no new rules here. In Democratic parts of the country, Democrats will still do well because of abortion. In swing states and swing districts, they probably won't because the economy matters. But the Democrats want to make abortion a very, very big closeout message. Even amid, this is from Politico, even amid an onslaught of GOP attacks on economy and inflation, Democrats are banking that a rollback of rights for half the U.S. population is precisely the dynamic they must stress to voters in the high-stakes election. In both money and messaging, it's where the party is focused in the final stretch before the midterm. And then the Washington Post has a story. Apocalypse Now. Democrats embrace a dark midterm message. Biden and the Democrats planned to run mostly on their accomplishments, but warnings of a Republican dystopia are becoming a bigger part of their message. With a tough midterm election about 6 weeks away, many Democrats have largely settled on a campaign message, and it's not one that simply emphasizes their accomplishments. Instead, it amounts to a stark warning. If Republicans take power, they will establish a dystopia that cripples democracy and eviscerates abortion rights and other freedoms. When you're the in party in the midterms, like the Democrats are now, and the wind is blowing against you, you have to ride every advantageous breeze you can find, says former Congressman Steve Israel. And the Democrats have found those breezes in the Dobbs decision and in Donald Trump. I don't know if this is going to work, but it's par for the course for the Democrats. You know, modern campaign ads really started in the 1964 election between Lyndon Johnson and Barry Goldwater. This is after Kennedy's assassination. Johnson is running for election, and he's running against conservative Barry Goldwater, who wrote The Conscience of a Conservative. Ghostwritten, my friend Brent Bozell, it was his dad who ghost wrote it for Goldwater, and there have always been questions over whether Goldwater actually read the book. The book's fantastic. But Goldwater decided we needed to confront communism around the world. And so Lyndon Johnson ran one of the first negative commercials to air on national television ever. What this commercial does is you see a little girl in a wildflower field, and she's pulling petals from a flower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 6. She gets lost in the count, and she gets to 10, and you hear 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as this counting, it zooms into her eye, and the eye goes to the pupil, and it's black, and then there's a nuclear explosion. This was Lyndon Johnson's ad against Barry Goldwater to scare the bejesus out of Americans that if you elected Barry Goldwater, you would get nuclear holocaust.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. These are the stakes. To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Barry Goldwater's campaign message, his motto, his theme was "In your heart, you know he's right." That was George Bush in 2000 was "Help is on the way." Barack Obama, "We are the change we've been waiting for." Bill Clinton was "Don't stop thinking about tomorrow." Barry Goldwater was "In your heart, you know he's right." Lyndon Johnson on the campaign trail turned it around on him and said, "In your guts, you know he's nuts." It was effective. Had I been alive, I would have voted Goldwater, but he lost to Johnson, who ran a fear campaign, convinced Americans that Goldwater would start a nuclear holocaust, would go to nuclear war with Russia. It's what the Democrats tried to do in 1980, Carter versus Reagan. They tried to claim that Reagan would start a nuclear war with Russia. Back to the Washington Post here. A September 9 to 12 Fox News poll found 59% of registered voters are extremely concerned about inflation and higher prices, and those voters prefer the Republican candidate for Congress. In addition, while President Biden's job rating have improved, 42% approve of his performance, 53% disapprove. 42% is an improvement. That's still bad. It's still underwater and could drag down Democrats. Beyond that, the Democrats' newly dark message is a gamble. Biden is trying to draw a delicate distinction by blaming MAGA Republicans and has said he's not talking about all Republicans, noting he can still work with many of them. But GOP leaders say the president is simply calling them all fascist. At a recent rally, Trump suggested Biden was branding Trump supporters enemies of the state, and then added he's an enemy of the state. You want to know the truth. Still, the current landscape has little modern precedent. I don't think that's true at all. You know, part of the problem with the left in general is that they don't have a good grasp of history. They don't have a good sense of history. They don't want to find historic parallels. They want everything to be new. And I'm hearing more and more commentary from the press that this is new, this has never been done, we've never been in a time like this. I don't think that's true at all. I think this is the economy stupid. This is the economy. They want to make it about abortion because in the Democratic bubble, abortion is the big issue. The hordes of Mordor want to go worship at the altar of Moloch to kill their kids, and they can't believe that nobody else cares about this issue. Everybody must, because everyone in their bubble does. They want everyone to be able to kill kids. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about inflation. They care about that issue in their bubble. It's the dominant issue. But that's not the dominant issue in the suburban school where the boy is suddenly on the girls' swim team. That's not the dominant issue where the schools are shut down and your kid has fallen behind. That's not the dominant issue when you've lost your job or you can't find employees and your business is going under. That's not the dominant issue when you can't afford gas in your car. That's not the dominant issue when you can't afford your grocery bill. That's not the dominant issue for most Americans. For most Americans, it remains the economy stupid. And all the belly aching in Washington, D.C. and in the press corps that this is something new. There's no modern precedent. We've never seen something like this. You don't have to look very hard to find precedents. And to suggest the old rules might not apply, I think is just the media's way of trying to keep you interested in the election. Yes, it's true. If Republicans get all confident and decide we're not going to go vote because it's already done, well, then Democrats will win. You still got to go vote. But it looks like if the election were held today, you all would be angry with Washington, turn out and vote Republican. There's a story, I didn't even link to it. It's such a nonsensical story. It's, rural voters might not be turning out. Why? Because of the Dobbs decision. they might not go vote for the Republicans. There's so much wishful thinking in this Democratic bubble right now. And the Democratic bubble is reflective of where the press is. And this is why a lot of people on the left, if the Republicans do well, are going to cast doubts on the election. And this is something I think everyone needs to understand here. Final point before I take a break here on this. When everyone in the Democratic bubble, along with the media inside that bubble, says the old rules might not apply, there is little modern precedent. Women are registering to vote at historic numbers. Rural voters might not come out for the GOP. All that's doing, if the Republicans win, is to set Democrats up to be the election deniers. And the media will back them on this. The media will give them a pass just like they've long given Stacey Abrams a pass up until a hot minute ago when the Washington Post suddenly called her out on it, which just means she's going to lose for sure. The Democratic bubble, the media bubble, it's all the same, and they are convinced that the Dobbs decision to get rid of Roe v. Wade will inspire millions of young women to show up at the polls to vote for their ability to kill their children. And that will turn the entire election dynamic around and will give the Democrats wins. The New York Times, Nate Cohn says, well, the Democrats actually do have a shot at holding on to the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, there's been a 5.5-point polling swing in Pennsylvania towards Dr. Oz. In Wisconsin, Ron Johnson now leads the polling average. In Georgia, Herschel Walker is seeing Raphael Warnock start to go back up in the polls as the Walker campaign hasn't answered his attack ad, the Warnock attack ad about Walker's ex-wife. They need to respond. I don't know that they have the money to do it, but they need to respond. In Nevada, Adam Laxalt is now in the polling lead. There's been a 6-point swing in the polls over the last 3 months to Adam Laxalt. So even if Herschel Walker loses, and I still think he can win, I just don't think it's as sure as a month ago. I was pretty confident a month ago. Not as much anymore as the polls have shifted back in Warnock's favor. But if the GOP holds Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, which they're likely to do, and Ohio, which they will, and they pick up Arizona, they control, or they pick up Nevada, they control the Senate. They're more than likely going to control the House. Yes, we won't know until Election Day. But my point is that the Democrats have decided they're going to go full attack, dystopia, scare people about the GOP. And it's really hard to scare people about Republicans when you're in charge and the economy's gone to hell in a handbasket with you at the wheel at the ship of state. It's really hard to tell people if you elect the Republicans, it will be so much worse when they remember the Republicans being in charge 4 years ago and we didn't have all these problems that we do now. It's really hard to cast the other side as some authoritarian dystopian election deniers when you've propped up Stacey Abrams and you've driven the economy into the ground. It's going to be very hard to do. But good luck trying while Republicans focus on crime and the economy and inflation, the issues voters actually care about. But hey, who knows? Maybe the old rules don't apply and there's no modern precedent. And if pigs could fly, well, it would make for interesting times in the air and under umbrellas.